Welcome back to the Free Hour. It's Trevor Turner. It's your boy Tree. Thank you for joining me today, man. And today we're going to be talking about the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People by Covey. Look, the reason I want to talk about this book was really important to me in my own transformation. It was really important in getting my perspective on track. It was really important in helping me learn how to manage my time. It was really important in learning how to start to work toward these goals that I had made for myself. Because, the last book we talked about was Think and Grow Rich. Think and Grow Rich was the book that gave me goals. It was the book that gave me direction. It was the book that helped me set my inner compass, right? 7 Habits is what I do on a day-by-day, week-by-week, month-by-month basis to work towards those goals. It's how I shifted the way I look at life. It's how I shifted the way I look at certain things I need to do. It's about how I shifted the way that I look at even the things that I used to do. And the reason why I no longer have the desire to do those things, because Think and Grow Rich gave me these huge goals and these huge dreams. And if I still had that same mentality, that same paradigm, that same lenses that I had before, guess what? If I had that same old way of thinking, selling drugs and committing crimes would have got me to those monetary goals. They would have got me to those places I wanted to be. 7 Habits is what helped me get to a principle-centered core. It's what helped me keep everything in the realm of principles. All right, so let's jump into this. 7 Habits. 7 Habits is about, first of all, it's about paradigms. It's about the lenses that we look at the world through. It is about inside out transformation. It's not about changing your personality without changing your way of thinking. It's not about putting a smile on your face while still harboring deceitfulness or hatred in your heart. It's not about trying to use or manipulate people. It's not about trying to win people over without actually becoming that person that those people need to have around them. And one of the first things that they talked about in this is he talked about a personal story with his son, how his son was not doing very well in things like school and things like baseball, dealing with other people. They said that they felt that he was developing slowly. And what they would do is they would try their hardest to encourage their son. They would try their hardest to encourage their son and protect their son and tell people that he was exactly where he needed to be. He was trying his hardest. So the problem is that they were looking at their son through a lens of, this is what society deems as successful. This is what we want him to be. This is where we want him to be at. So when they said that he's doing his best and he's just learning, don't make fun of him, or it's something that he's just learning, he'll eventually succeed and he'll eventually thrive at it, they didn't actually believe that in their minds. They believed that he was not where he needed to be. They believed that he needed that protection instead of being able to succeed. How they tried to treat him did not speak as loudly as what they really believed about him. What they thought about their son was the issue, not how they were treating him, not the things that he was actually doing, but what they really thought about him was the issue. To empower him, they had to change how they felt and believed about him so that they could really treat him the way they wanted to. We have to remember that the problems we face cannot be solved at the same level of thinking we were at when we created them. We have to think outside the box. We have to move to new levels. We have to develop ourselves to solve the problems that were created by us at certain levels of immaturity or at certain levels of intellectual development. The way we see the problem is the problem. And there are principles that we cannot escape or get around. These are principles of development, of growth. There are no quick fixes. Okay? There's no shortcut to success. There's no $1 million in 8 minutes. There's none of that. We need to become the type of person that is ready for opportunity. We need to become the type of person that can complete the things that we want to complete. And it's about perspective. It's about paradigms. It's about beliefs. It's about the way we see the world, the way we see ourselves, the way we see other people. It's the lenses we view the world and those around us through. And our character is a composite of that. It is not only a composite of our habits, but it is a composite of our paradigms. It is a composite of our beliefs and the way we see the world, the way we see other people. So now, when we sow thought, we reap action. When we sow action, we reap habit. When we sow habit, that's when we reap character. And when we sow character, that's when we reap destiny. Habit requires, and this book is really, it's talking about 7 habits. So the foundation for habits, as Covey describes it, is knowledge, skill, and desire. Building a habit requires all 3. We know about the fact that, it takes 21 days to build a habit. It takes this long to break bad habits and to replace bad habits with new things, or we can habit stack. Like when we get to, we're thinking about something we want to add to our day, we say, okay, well, before I do this, I'm going to do this. But to actually make a habit, we need knowledge, we need skill, and we need desire. Knowledge is what to do and why to do it. Skill is how to do it. And desire is wanting to do it. Me personally, I think the desire is the most important part of the habit. But the knowledge and skill are still very important for these habits. So when I talk about these 7 habits, we're going to talk about the knowledge, we're going to talk about the skills, we're going to talk about the desires. So the 7 habits are incremental, they're sequential. It's an integrated approach to development of personal and interpersonal effectiveness. They grow us from maturity to maturity, from dependence to independence to interdependence. Human life is interdependence. We combine our efforts with others for our greatest success. That's what interdependence means. So now the habits 1, 2, and 3 are the essence of character growth. They are the private victories. It is the inside-out process of owning ourselves and developing our character enough to move from dependence to independence. So habit 1 is be proactive. Habit 2 is begin with the end in mind. And habit 3 is put first things first. So let's get into these first 3 habits. So habit 1, be proactive. Now when we talk about being proactive is the principle of personal vision. And I know of no more encouraging fact than the unquestionable ability of man to elevate his life by conscious endeavor. Self-awareness. It's the ability to think about our own thought processes. Being proactive requires the ability to observe our own thought processes and think about our own thought processes. This is something that is uniquely human. The reason we can make significant advances from generation to generation and why we can evaluate and learn from others' experiences as well as our own is self-awareness. This is also why we can make and break our own habits. We are not our feelings. We are not our mood. We are not our thoughts. We have the ability to transcend those things and think about why we think the things we do, to think about why we believe the things we do, to think about why we feel the way we do. It is what enables us to stand apart and examine the way we see ourselves, others, and the world around us. And some of the ways we see ourselves are through the social mirror, genetic determinism, psychic determinism, and environmental determinism. And these keep us locked in a reactive way of thinking and living. Now, when we talk about reactive is stimulus response. Something happens and you respond. Something is going on at work, you respond. Something comes up, you deal with it. That is a reactive paradigm and mindset. Reactive is not mindfully making choices. Reactive is not analyzing situations or figuring out best practices or strategies. Reactive is knee-jerk. It's instinctive, emotional. Reactive gives your power away to these situations, to the environment, to genetics, through social situations. Okay? We have the choice about how to feel. We have the choice about how our mindsets work. And if you don't believe me, there was an example in the book that I'm going to talk about right now. His name is Frankl. This man, he was a Holocaust survivor. He was in one of the concentration camps. And this man decided, in the midst of all this trauma, in the midst of all this suffering, in the midst of all this death surrounding him, that he was going to choose how he felt about what was going on. He decided that he was going to have the positive mindset. He was able to make that choice. And a lot of us were like, well, I can't feel like that. I got this job. I can't feel like that. People are out to get me. I can't feel like that. They won't let me do. We have the power and the choice to feel however we want to feel. We have the power and the choice to think about what we're going to do when situations arise and when things happen in our lives. We have that power. Being proactive is about reclaiming that power. Proactivity. The first and most basic habit of a highly effective person is proactivity. It means more than just taking initiative. It means that we are responsible for our own lives, our behaviors, our outcomes, is a function or result of our own decisions and choices, not our conditions. Not the things that come up that we feel like we have to respond to. Not the way somebody was talking to you. Not the way somebody was looking at you. And this is something I experience a lot when I'm talking to people in prison, especially myself. All right, my bad. I had a counselor calling me. So look, when I was even dealing with my own beliefs, when I was talking to people in prison, a lot of the times when we're locked into certain environments or we're locked into certain ways of thinking, we think and we believe and we fully subscribe to the beliefs that we have to react a certain way based upon what other people do or based upon situations. Like you don't have to feel a certain type of way just because he's looking at you, but I have to. He said this. What else am I supposed to do? How else am I supposed to feel? He's like this. How else am I supposed to? But look, we always have the choice. If we are proactive, and look, even if we're in certain situations where we may not fully feel like we have this huge amount of options as to what we do, we always have the choice about how we feel about what's going on. We always have the choice about the mindset that we tackle these issues and these obstacles or these things that come up. We always have that choice, not our conditions, not our environments, not the people around us, not the dude who's looking at you crazy, not the dude who might be talking or throwing subs or talking straight to your face, or when your boss comes in and you know that it's their fault and the work that you're about to have to do is because of them, you still have the choice about how you feel about it. Look, proactivity is this: stimulus followed by freedom to choose, followed by response. The difference between proactivity and reactivity is that gap where you think about what it is that you're going to do. And what happens is this, is that even if you choose to do the same thing that you would have done if you operated just solely on reactivity, is that now you have acknowledged the fact that you have a choice. You've given yourself that choice, and you made the choice that you wanted to make. You've given yourself power back. Now, you may not like all the options. You may not like that this was the best choice to make in the moment. You may hate it. But guess what? You're going to love the fact that you knew you had a choice and you took the time to realize you had a choice. It's about self-awareness, imagination, conscious, independent will. It's the difference between empowering conditions to control us or empowering ourselves to control conditions. Reactive people, they feel good if the weather is good. Proactive people carry their own weather with them. That means that we are value driven. That means we perform up to our self-held values regardless of the weather. You ever heard of a fair weather friend? When things is going good, they up with you. When you got some money, they're hitting you up. When things is going good, they're with you. But when you down, they ain't nowhere around. That's the difference. Reactive people are driven by circumstances, feelings, environment, social situations, the behaviors and feelings of others. Proactive people are driven by values. They are value driven and value centered. Carefully thought about, selected, and internalized values. And this is hard. That's true. It's hard to grasp. It's hard to understand. It's even harder to accept. That's why it's the first habit. But until you can say deeply and honestly that I am what I am today because of the choices I made yesterday, then you will never be able to say that you choose otherwise. I want you to think about that. Until I told myself that I was in prison, not because somebody snitched on me, but because of the choice that I made, I was never going to be able to say that I choose to now be in school. I choose to now be talking about positivity. I choose to have 4 different job offers that they just hit me with. I choose to be somebody who is looked at in a completely different light, even though I have this ankle monitor on my leg. Because I made the choice and the distinction, and I made the acknowledgement that my choices got me here. And once I took that power back, even though I'm in a low place right now, I realized that I brought myself here. And since I brought myself here, I can take myself up there too. All right? Act. Do not be acted upon. This is our basic nature. To take initiative. Not to be controlled by circumstances. To recognize your responsibility in making things happen. Now, what does reactive language look like? There's nothing I can do. It's just the way I am. You make me so mad. I have to do it. I'm sorry, I can't. I must. If only. If only I had this, I would feel so much better. I can't wait for that. It'll just make my day. This language, it comes from determinism. And we were talking about that, the genetic determinism, the environmental determinism, the social determinism. It is a transfer of responsibility. I am not responsible. I cannot choose my response. But what does proactive language look like? Let's look at the alternatives. I can choose a different approach. I control my own feelings. I can create an effective presentation. I will choose an appropriate response. I choose. I prefer. I will. I choose. One way to be mindful of our proactivity is to take a look at where we spend our time as it relates to our circles of concern and our circles of influence. Now, our circle of concern are the things that we care about. That may be things like politics. It may be things like, to be honest, the way we gossip and shit at work. We're concerned about what's going on with the bosses or up the corporate ladder. We're concerned about what people down the hallway are doing. We're concerned about so much of these things. We're concerned about our favorite football team, our basketball team. We're concerned about what's going on in certain aspects of the world. And where we spend our time, do we spend our time worrying about all these things that we're concerned about, or do we spend our time in the circle of influence? The circle of influence is the things that you can do something about. The things that you can do something about. The quality of your work. What you spend your day doing. Your children, not the neighbor's kids. My bad. Your kids, not the neighbor's kids. The circle of concern is filled with haves. I'll be happy when I have my house paid off. If only I had. If only I have, or if I have, when I have. Circle of influence is filled with be. I can be more. I can be better. And when we start spending our time in the things that we can do something about, that is proactivity. Anytime we think the problem is out there, that's the problem. All right? Habit 2. Begin with the end in mind. Now, this is something that not only Covey has talked about, but this is something that Tony Robbins talked about in Awaken the Giant Within. And this is something that is it was amazing for me to help me get my compass. Now, I want you to really take the time and actually do this real quick. If you have to pause the video, go ahead. But look, think about your funeral or your 100th birthday celebration. Not the sadness of it, not the fact that you're gone, but what I want you to think about is what you would want the people who show up to say about you. Who would you want to show up to begin with? How many people would you want to be there? Would you want to be nobody there because nobody gave a shit? Would you want a whole bunch of people there? Family, friends, people that you've benefited and helped through the things that you've done. How would they feel about what you have done? What would you have liked them to have seen in you? What achievements and accomplishments would you like them to be talking about? It's about being value driven. It is about making our day-by-day steps and activities fit our desired end goals. That's what beginning with the end in mind means. Look, all things are created twice. There is first a mental creation, and second, a physical creation to all things. And we can do the example of the house. How first it's thought up, the plans are drawn up, and they're created, and the house is created before a single nail is hammered, before a single bit of earth is moved. Clearly define what it is that you're trying to accomplish. Denzel Washington once said, and I know this video is floating around right now, that dreams without goals are just dreams, and ultimately they fuel disappointment. The two endowments of humans that help us to begin with the end in mind are conscience and imagination. Imagination, which the importance of that was hammered home in Think and Grow Rich when I talked about Think and Grow Rich. It's about knowing where you want to go. It's about using your imagination to have that mental picture firmly in mind so you can start, continue, and finish on a day-by-day basis with that mental picture firmly in mind, using your imagination and conscience. And one of the best things Covey does is ask us to create a personal mission statement. He tells us that creating this statement, this constitution, helps us to filter every thought, action, habit, behavior through a lens that reflects where we want to end up. Our statement should be about what we want to be, what we want to do, and what we want to achieve, and on our values and principles. Begin at the very center of your vision and values, at the very center of what it is you want to see and hear at your funeral or your 100th birthday celebration. Identify your centers, your main focuses. Shift them to becoming principle centers, and then use that as a lens that you see your statement through. The lens you see your end through. The lens you see your life through. So if habit 1 is about telling ourselves that we are the programmer, the author, the script writer, which lines up a lot with what we were talking about affirmations a couple weeks ago. It lines up a lot with what we were talking about with Think and Grow Rich. When we are the ones, we are the author of our own lives. We are the ones who decide where it is we're going to go. We're the ones who decide what it is we're going to do. Habit 2 is about actually writing down that program, writing down that narrative, writing down that script. It's about actually making sure that every step we take is going toward that end goal. It's about actively making sure that the plot of our story is reaching the overarching end goal that we want it to reach, the ending that we want, that we desire. Habit 3, put first things first. If the first habit is about fully becoming the programmer, and the second habit is about writing that program, habit 3 is about lining everything up with that program. It is about using that lens that perspective, that paradigm, to take a good hard look at what we're doing and ask ourselves if those things are really pushing us towards our real end goals. Putting first things first, it's about principles of personal management. The things which matter most must never be at the mercy of things which matter the least. So ask yourself, and this is important, pause the video if you have to, but ask yourself really quick, what is one thing that you could do that you're not doing now, that if you did on a regular basis would make a tremendous positive difference in your personal life? What's one thing in your business life, in your professional life, that will do the same thing? What's one thing you're doing now that if you stop doing would make that same level of impact? Habit 3 is the second creation, the physical creation. Habit 3 is where Covey gets into his quadrant-based time management matrix. Now, I learned about this in a Success for College class. I know a lot of people have learned about this time-based management. It's very popular, and this is where Covey describes in this book, 7 Habits. So we're going to get into it real quick. Habit number 1, important and urgent. Habit number 2, important but not urgent. Quadrant 3, urgent but not important. And quadrant 4, not important, not urgent. Urgent matters are the ones that are usually visible. They're the ones that press us, the ones that insist on action. They're the ones that are right in front of us. They're the ones that are usually so popular with other people. But so many times, these urgent activities are not actually important, at least not to us. Important matters have to do with results. So these are the things that contribute to our mission. These are the things that get us ultimately to our end goals, that get us to the last page of our book, the book of our lives, that get us to the last scene of the movie that is our life. These are the things that contribute to our values, to our high priority goals. And often the most important things are not urgent. We react to urgent matters. We have to be proactive with the important matters. So here a brief outline of the results of spending time in each quadrant. Quadrant 1, important and urgent. If you spend the majority of your time in this quadrant, what happens to you is you get stress, you get burnout. You get into a mode of crisis management. You're always putting out fires. So these are significant results and require immediate action, but staying here, staying in this quadrant makes you problem-minded and constantly in crisis mode, going from problem to problem until it controls so much of you that your only escape is to mind-numbing quadrant 4 activities. These are the people who go to work and they're getting ahead, but what happens is that they're dealing with everything as it comes. They're dealing with everything as it comes up. They're not putting systems in place to make sure that those things are getting done. These are the students that are doing their essays last minute. These are the students that are doing their assignments the week they're due, the day before they're due, working on their presentations on the weekend before the Monday they're due, or doing it on that Sunday and it's due on Canvas Sunday night at 11:59 p.m. These are important things, but what happens is that you put it into crisis mode. You're always putting out these fires, and it stresses you. It burns you out. So that way, when you're done doing these things, you don't have the energy or the time to do the other important things for your life or for your goals. The only things you can do is escape to those mind-numbing activities. So let's skip up to 3. 3 are the urgent but not important. So what happens there is when you get into or when you stay in quadrant 3, you are stuck in short-term focus, crisis management, reputation driven. You have a chameleon-like character. You see goals and plans as worthless. These people feel victimized, out of control. They have shallow or broken relationships. These are crisis managers who get stuck in the expectations and priorities of other people. These are the people who rarely do No, these are the people who react to everything that comes their way. They think everything will propel them forward, but they rarely do, as they're not even your issues. You are putting out others' fires at this point. These are the people pleasers. They're the victims who unfortunately have to rely solely on others because others are all they take care of. The people who spend their time in 3, along with 4, are usually marked by total irresponsibility. They get fired from jobs. They're dependent on others or institutions for the basics. Get out of here. Get out of quadrant 3, because though urgent, these things are not important. And when I say urgent but not important, these are when your coworkers need you to cover for them. These are when your boss needs you to do an activity that's really covering for him but doesn't have anything to do with your work duty. These are the things that you're going to be doing, the fires you're going to be putting out. But what's going to happen is that you're never going to get any recognition for these things. You're never going to get any advancement. You're never going to get pushed forward because they're not even your duties. They're not even your responsibilities. These are the things that are going to get other people put ahead. And what's going to happen is if you get stuck in 3, this is where you're going to come out feeling like the world has rolled you. The world has taken advantage of you. The world has chewed you up and spit you out. While everybody else around you seems to be getting ahead because you're doing the work for them and not doing anything for yourself. So habit 4, or quadrant 4, my bad. Not urgent, not important. This is nothing. This is being a leaf in the wind. Now, the problem with quadrant 4, the quadrant 4 is, if you spend time here, you get no advancement. If you spend the majority of your time here, you get no advancement. You get nothing, period. And what does quadrant 4 look like? Quadrant 4 is not like watching a couple episodes of your favorite TV show. Quadrant 4 is not like watching some funny videos on YouTube between doing some schoolwork or doing some stuff at work. Quadrant number 4 is not talking on the phone with your girl or with your dude after work. Quadrant 4 is binge watching. From the time you get off work until the time you got to go to sleep, binge watching. Doing nothing but watching TV. Doing nothing but playing video games when your friends ain't even online to play with you. That's what quadrant 4 is. And what happens is you get no advancement. What happens is you stay stuck in the same place or you regress. All right? Get out of there. Stay out of quadrant 4. You can have good recreation, or as Covey calls it, recreation. Now, your mind can be fed by reading your favorite books. Your mind can be fed and refreshed by watching your favorite TV show. Your mind can be fed and refreshed by even playing games. But the thing is, don't spend so much time doing them that you forget about everything else. Then they become quadrant 4 activities. Everything in moderation. Quadrant 2. Spending time in quadrant 2 leads to vision. It leads to perspective. It leads to balance, discipline, control, few crises, principles. These are the people who filter their activities and build their schedules based upon principles and goals. They think about what it is they want to be and focus what they do around that. Even doing these things shrink quadrant 1 because things are taken care of in advance. Systems are developed and implemented and put into place to deal with urgent matters in an easy, efficient, and effective way. Quadrant 2 is building relationships. It's personal and professional mission statements. It's long-range planning. It's exercising. It's preventative maintenance. It's preparation. These are all quadrant 2 activities. These are your production capabilities as a person or as a professional. The example of quadrant 2 activities, if you have an essay due in a month, doing a chunk of it every single day for that whole month, that is a quadrant 2 activity. If you know that you have a quarterly report due at work on a certain date, and you know that you're able to use facts and figures and data for an entire month before that to present it, doing it, having a system to where you're able to take time to do it every single day. So you're not trying to struggle. You're not trying to throw it all together. It's having a system in place to make a certain amount of sales calls or cold calls or social media cold messaging or videos or content. Is having that time in place to do it every single day, to work on it every single week, to work on it in such a way that it's not becoming something where you're pushing close to a deadline. Those are quadrant 2 activities. Quadrant 2 activities feed opportunities and starve problems. Now, go back and think about the answers to the questions at the beginning of the habit. The question was, if there was one thing that you could do, if you start doing it on a regular basis, would have a profound impact on your life. What quadrant did that answer fall into? I bet you it fell into quadrant 2. So how do we get there? How do we get to quadrant 2 if we're stuck in either quadrant 3 or if we're doing better and stuck in quadrant 1? By using the power of no. Don't put yourself into everything. Don't commit to everyone else's priorities and crises. And the way that you can say no is to have a bigger yes burning inside of you. It's not about just shutting people out. It's not about just being self-centered and selfish and looking at other people and just saying, you're just taking away from my time. It's just about having that bigger yes inside of you, burning inside of you. That desire, those dreams, those goals, those ends, those great things that you want people to say at your funeral. So next, we need to find our desired roles for our lives, for our goals, and shape our week into activities, into habits and behaviors that fit into those roles. Identify your roles. I want to create content. I want to create content that helps people. I want to bring you stuff like this on these books. I want to bring you like the ABC series. I want to bring you workouts. I want to bring you podcasting. I want to bring you all of this stuff. So that is the role. I select short-term goals. When it came to this book thing, that means every single day I'm reading and working on this book. That means every single day I'm looking up topics to talk about or thinking about topics to talk about and creating content, even future content, to where I have content in the hole, to where I'm not behind on everything, to where even as I'm working on this one, for this video, I was working on other stuff as well because I had a system in place. And I schedule. I find the time that I can use for it because everybody has a free hour, at least a free hour. Everybody has that. You may have it at work. You may have it at home. You may have it in between on the way. You have something to where you can put those quadrant 2 activities in, and then you adapt daily. So that means that that time you may have thought that you had, you didn't have, but then you found out, oh no, I actually do have some time earlier in the day, or I do have some time later in the day for this, or this didn't work right here because I was just so tired from doing this other stuff, but I felt super energized at this time. And you adapt those things and you put them into place. It breaks down to this. Long-term organizing is your mission statement. And that goes into roles, and your roles go into goals. And on a weekly basis, your roles go into goals, go into plans. All right? Habits 4, 5, and 6, these are the public victories. These are the habits that take us from independence to interdependence. We see that the first habits are centered around character development. They're the ones that take us from dependence to independence. They're the ones that take us to maturity, to being a mature person. Those habits were about becoming, not acting like, not showing the world something that does not necessarily exist inside, but about becoming a whole person, about going from being a victim to being the author of your own existence, from going from crisis to crisis or event to event to becoming someone who focuses on developing their own production, skill sets, and habits based upon what they want, not what others need or dictate for them. These next habits are about how to coexist with other people in a synergistic way. And synergy being the interaction between two or more people that creates combined effort greater than the sum of their separate parts. But remember, these habits of interdependence, they have to be built on a solid foundation of independence. This is the only way to become effective. You cannot quick fix this. There are no shortcuts to this. You cannot talk your way out of problems that you behaved yourself into. All right, so habit 4, think win-win. Habit 5, seek first to understand, then be understood. And habit 6, synergize. So habit 4, think win-win. Win-win, I know, has often been described as a technique. Win-win is not a technique. Win-win is a total philosophy of human interaction. And it's one of 6 philosophies, in fact, when it comes to human interaction. Win-win, win-lose, lose-win, lose-lose, win, and win-win or no deal. So let's start with win-lose. Win-lose is one of probably the most common ones. It's I win, you lose. This paradigm is based on competition. It's based on comparison, not cooperation. It is literally winning at someone else's expense. This is a paradigm that many people are programmed into because of competition in the family, at home, in school, when being compared to other students instead of their own potential. Sales contests that promote individual accomplishment actually discourage cooperation because you cannot win without someone else losing. This is a mentality, a scarcity mentality. This is a mentality that says there's not enough to go around. For me to win, someone else has to lose. And unfortunately, this is a mentality that is very common, especially here in the States. We feel like for us to win, that means somebody else has to lose. So we get into that paradigm. And a lot of times what we do is we get into that mindset that the person who has to lose is the person right in front of us. So moving on to the next one, lose-win. I lose, you win. These are the people that say, look, man, go ahead, have it your way. You know, and they say it like that. You know what, I ain't going to cause no stuff, man. You know, I'm just going to leave it alone. I'll be the bigger person. But inside they're thinking, step on me again. Everyone does. I'm a loser. I've always been a loser. I mean, I'm a peacemaker. I will do anything to keep the peace. This one is worse than win-lose because it has no standards. It has no demands, no expectations, no vision. It's quick to please and quick to appease. It is literally being the nice guy, even if you fully and firmly believe that nice guys finish last. And among other issues, these people bury their problems and feelings, and they negatively affect the quality of their own self-esteem and relationships because of the way they let other people treat them in their dealings with people. And these are both weak positions. They're based on personal insecurities. So in the short run, win-lose will produce more results because it draws on the strengths and talents of people at the top. In the long run, it does not promote stable, solid, and beneficial relationships. Lose-win is just weak and chaotic from jump. So lose-lose. I lose and you lose. This is what happens when two win-lose people get together. Two people who care more about winning at the expense of others results in lose-lose. It's about being vindictive, wanting to get back at, or thinking that winning means the other loses. These people will take an L just to see the other person take an L. It's like burning your house down so your ex-wife can't have half of it. This is the paradigm of adversarial conflict, of war. It's of the highly dependent person without inner direction who is so miserable that they want everyone else to be losing too. They don't care if anybody wins. They don't care if they win. They just want you to lose, and they will take an L to make sure that you lose too. Win. These are the people who don't necessarily believe that a win has to come at someone else's expense. They just know they want to win. They just know they need to win. Whether anyone else wins or not too. It's about securing the bag and leaving others to secure theirs however they can. It's not hating, but it's not helping either. It's not being so selfish that you need other people to lose to win, but it's still about not caring if anybody else wins or loses at all. It's just about winning. All right? Win-win. Win-win is a frame of mind and heart that constantly seeks mutual benefit in all human interactions. Now, this shares a similarity with a portion of the confidence formula from Think and Grow Rich, which states that I will not engage in any transaction which does not benefit all whom it affects. Having a win-win mentality literally boosts your confidence. Having a win-win mentality not only changes the way that you see other people, but it changes the way you see yourself. It not only changes the way you interact with other people, but it changes the way you interact with yourself. How you feel about the world and how you feel about yourself. This is an approach that helps all feel good about the decision, including you, and it helps make them feel committed to the plan. This is cooperation. In simple language, this is the belief in the third way, the better way. Now, even further from that, a step up from that is win-win or no deal. This is a paradigm that it says if decisions are not profitable for all involved and nothing can be reached, that all parties will agree to disagree amicably. So this takes a little bit of pressure off you. It frees parties from compromising so much that they find themselves in seemingly win-win situations that are actually unsatisfying to either party down the line. So we find that you can have win-win without bending over backwards. Win-win is not about making concessions or making such heavy compromises to make everybody feel good. This is to make them feel good. That's really lose-win. Win-win is about, I know that I'm winning and I know that you're winning too. And I care that you win also. But still having that assertiveness, still having that confidence, still having that self-respect and love for yourself, because we've grown to independence now. To know that you winning is also important. Win-win, it comes from mentality. Not a scarcity mentality, and a mentality of abundance. A mentality that there is enough to go around. Even more than that. That there's enough for everyone to thrive. That there's enough for everyone to explode in growth. That's where win-win comes from. Next, habit 5. Seek first to understand, then be understood. There was a story that Covey, he talked about in the book. It was about a man, he went to see an optometrist. And he couldn't see. As he got older, he noticed that he couldn't see far anymore. So he went to the optometrist. He said, hey man, as the years have gone by, I can't really see that well anymore. I can't see, the details in the trees and stuff. I can't see the skyline, the city line. I can't see that stuff anymore. And the optometrist is like, oh, okay, cool. Takes off his glasses and hands them to him. The man says, he puts them on. He says, man, I can't see shit. Now I can't see up close with these glasses. And the optometrist is like, hey man, whoa, it's worked for me. Like you're really being ungrateful now, because I've given you a solution that's worked for me. And, you should be grateful. What happens is the man listened for a minute or two, suggested that he wore his glasses. And when they didn't work, instead of acknowledging that his solution may have not been the effective solution, he just says that it worked for him. He should be grateful and thankful for the ineffective advice. This is what happens a lot when we do not seek first to understand. We often rush in, trying to fix things up without taking the time to really diagnose and understand the problem deeply enough first. This is about when your kids come talk to you and they're talking about they have a problem at school, and you're like, oh, well, you should do this, or I don't think you should feel that way. This is what happens when we don't validate people's feelings and they say, you know what, it's cool, man, you don't understand, or you're all right. And they don't want to talk to you anymore. And you wonder why they don't want to talk to you. These are the people who say, I don't understand my son. He won't listen to me. You just contradicted yourself. To understand your son, you have to listen to him. Him listening to you has nothing to do with you understanding him. Many times we're so worried about being understood that we forget about understanding. And I know that you have experienced this when someone seems to be listening, but all they were doing was waiting for a place to jump in. And they spent so much time trying to make sure that you understood what they were saying that any points you were actually trying to make were lost somewhere in translation. If anybody's had an argument with a significant other, you know exactly what I'm talking about. If anyone has had an argument with their kids, you know exactly what I'm talking about. If anybody has an argument with a coworker or a disagreement, you know exactly what I'm talking about. And if you have self-awareness and honesty, you can probably remember a few times that you did this to somebody else too. But look, in our defense, this is not fully our fault. We've spent many years learning to read and write, later learning how to speak. But what about listening? Really listening. Maybe listening to a few snatches of points to be able to use it as a source or confirming evidence for a point we're trying to make, but actual listening, a lot of us haven't learned it. Look, here's the point. If we want to interact with someone effectively, to influence them, our boss, our spouse, our child, our neighbor, our coworker, our friends, we need to understand them first. And you cannot do that with technique. Seeking first to understand is not a technique. Seeking first to understand is character, because our character is constantly radiating out from us. Seeking first to understand, making that paradigm shift, it gets us away from having people think that we are trying to manipulate them or listening for some type of motive. It allows people to lower their guard with us because they know we are listening for the sake of understanding them, not using it against them, not going to tell somebody else, not just listening for a place to speak or an opportunity to share our own experiences or solutions that may or may not even fit their situation at all. Many people don't want a solution to begin with. Maybe they just want to talk. Maybe they just want to get it off their chest. And sometimes people do want a solution, but the way that you get to that is that you listen with empathy. You listen with the intent to understand, seeking first to understand, to really understand. This type of listening, it gets into another person's frame of reference. You see the world the way they see it. You understand their paradigm. You understand how they feel. Now, first of all, empathy is not sympathy. Sympathy is a form of agreement. It's a form of judgment. It is sometimes a more appropriate response, but sometimes people feed off of sympathy. Empathy is not agreement. It's not judgment. It's just fully, deeply understanding that person emotionally as well as intellectually. You can understand where someone is coming from, and you can understand someone's feelings about something and disagree with it. That's empathy. But if you don't seek first to understand, then how can you even really fully disagree with what somebody feels if you don't even know what they feel? You haven't understood it yet. Diagnose before you prescribe. Covey talks about another story in this. They had a newborn daughter. Daughter had a fever. It was getting real bad. Doctor, though, he was at a college football game. This is before cell phones. They couldn't text him. So they had to call up to the stadium. This is how bad the fever was. They had to call up to the stadium and have him page. So the doctor comes running. You know, he's not trying to miss a 2-minute drill before the half. He comes running. He says, "All right, so what? Your daughter has a fever? Okay, what's the fever? Okay, did you try this? Did you try that? Okay, cool. I'm gonna write you a prescription for medication. I'll call it in real quick. All right, bye." Covey's wife is like, "Oh, thank God, we finally got the medication." Covey's like, "Yeah, that was kind of a quick conversation, bro. Did you tell him that our daughter's a newborn? Does he know that?" And she was like, "Well, we didn't really get to that point. Like, he just kind of jumped in and told me, nah, call him back." They called him back. Doctor's all frustrated. You know, it's like a minute and some change left. They got one timeout left, but they got a chance to score going into the half. They're going to get the ball back too. All of that. So the doctor's running. He's running. He's like, "What is it now?" And he said, "Did you know our doctor's a newborn?" He was like, "Oh, no, I didn't. I'm going to change that prescription right now." He didn't realize their daughter was a newborn. Their daughter was a newborn. And once he found out, he changed it. Once he took the time to understand, he realized that the solution he was offering needed to be changed. If we had been able to take the time to understand our kids, if we had been able to take the time to even understand our parents when we were younger, if we had taken the time to understand fully our teachers or our coworkers or our boss, if we had fully taken the time to understand some of our friends, then there would have been a lot of problems, a lot of time wasted that could have been avoided if we sought first to understand. And of course, the second part of this habit, then seek to be understood. This is a part of this habit because knowing how to be understood is important. You just have to remember it's the second part of the habit. And to be understood, we use ethos, pathos, logos. Ethos is your personal credibility. It's the faith that people have in your integrity and competency. It's the trust you inspire. It's your emotional bank account with these people. It's your character. It's your integrity. Pathos is the empathic side. It's the feeling. It's when you're in alignment with the emotional thrust of another person's communication, which does not come without understanding fully that person. And logos is the logic. It's the reasoning. Notice the sequence. Character, then relationship, then logic. Most people go straight to logic without considering the other aspects. Most people go straight to logic without building their character up to where that person knows that they can trust your reasoning, without building that level of understanding up, knowing that that person trusts you, know exactly what they're talking about. We just jump straight to logic. Oh, you can't see? Well, I got glasses right here. They should work for you. They work for me. Without even considering the fact that that person might need a different prescription. Without even considering the fact that their daughter might be a newborn. Without considering the fact that your son might be going through some stuff at school that you really need to understand before trying to tell him that he needs to be the one to buckle down. Maybe he saw his friend was working as a mechanic or working in a trade and making a lot of money and having a happy life working with his hands and doing what he loved. Maybe your kid also likes working with his hands. And you never took the time to understand, so you just use logic. Well, if you do your homework, you'll succeed. If you do this, you'll succeed. Instead of telling him from a full level of understanding that if he wants to become a mechanic, he still needs to know math. He still needs to know how to work with things. He still needs to know how to critically think. But you never even got to the point where he knew he can trust your reasoning because you didn't take the time to understand what he was talking about. So habit 6, synergize. Synergy is about the principles of creative cooperation. Now, synergy is the highest activity in all life, and it focuses on the 4 unique human endowments, which are self-awareness, conscience, independent will, and creative imagination. It focuses on win-win and the skills of empathic communication. Habit 6 builds upon every other habit. It builds upon that foundation of the 4 unique human endowments, which come from your private victories, and it builds upon your win-win and your skills of empathic communication from the other 2 habits. Synergy is principle-centered leadership. It's principle-centered parenting. It's principle-centered interaction. It's principle-centered system building. It simply means that the whole is greater than the sum of its parts. And look, synergy is everywhere in nature. If you plant 2 plants close enough to each other, the roots will commingle and improve the quality of the soil so that both plants will grow better than if they were separate. 2 pieces of wood put together hold exponentially much more weight than if they're separate. Synergy literally means 1 + 1 can equal 3 or more. It's about opening your mind and heart and expressions to new possibilities, new alternatives, new options. It is about knowing and valuing the differences in people. It is about knowing that all people see the world not as it is, but as they are. And as Think and Grow Rich said, what 2 or more people ask for on earth will be done above. It is about working in the spirit of harmony. It is about working with an alliance of people on a common goal. That's what synergy. That's synergy. Habit 7. Sharpen the saw. Habit 7 builds upon all of these previous habits. It's the last habit, but is a constant habit, is a constant renewal. It is about focusing on your personal production capabilities. And there are 4 dimensions of renewal. They look like this. Physical, number 1. Physical renewal looks like exercise, nutrition, stress management. It looks like endurance, flexibility, strength, cardiovascular. It's about improving and renewing your body as a system. Caring effectively for your physical body. It is about loving your body enough to know that it needs to be taken care of. Just like a car needs its oil changed, you need maintenance. You need to eat right. You need to work out. You need to take time away to work on your stress. You need to take care of your body. Your body is worth being cared for and adorned in fine garments. We need to go to the doctor. We need to take care of our health. We need to take care of our body. Second dimension, mental. This is just as important as physical. Mental, it looks like reading, visualizing, planning, writing. And most of this comes through formal education. But I feel, and Covey feels, Tony Robbins feels, Napoleon Hill felt, Og Mandino felt that we should be lifelong learners. Benjamin Franklin felt that we should be lifelong learners. A lot of us, we let our minds just atrophy. We feel as though we have nothing new to learn, even though we know so little. We do not do any more reading. We don't explore new subjects. We don't think analytically. We don't think critically. We do not learn how to listen or even how to express ourselves in distilled, clear, and concise language. Train your mind to stand apart and examine its own program, its own thoughts, its own feelings and opinions. And you know what does this? Reading does this. Reading good literature or nonfiction material, it helps to sharpen the mind, to expand and inform it. Look, knowledge is learning from your own mistakes, but wisdom is learning from the experiences of others. And there are so many countless books from some of the greatest minds to ever have touched this planet. You can get into those minds through this aspect of renewal. Writing is also important. Keeping a journal of thoughts, emotions, experiences, insights, learnings. It promotes mental clarity, exactness, context. Communicating like this on a deeper level of thought, feeling, and ideas, it literally affects our ability to think clearly, to reason accurately, to be understood effectively. Get on that reading. Get on that writing. The next dimension, social/emotional. This is just as important as the physical and the mental. Social and emotional looks like service. It looks like empathy. It looks like synergy. It looks like intrinsic security. This one focuses on habits 4, 5, and 6. It centers on the principles of interpersonal leadership, empathic communication, creative cooperation. This aspect does not take time in the same way as the other dimensions do. This is something we can do in our everyday interactions, though, with other people. But it definitely does require exercise. It is about mindful communication, attentive and empathic listening, cooperative communication. It is about service, which is the rent that we pay for the privilege of living on this earth. It is about getting together with other people. It is about working and making your goals be to help other people. Now, spiritual, the fourth and final dimension, spiritual. And this is just important as the other 3 dimensions. See what I'm getting at here? Value clarification and commitment. Spiritual looks like study and meditation. Spiritual looks like providing leadership to your life. It is highly related to habit too, starting with the end in mind. It is about your core. It's about your center. It's about your commitment to your value system. It's about what's important to you. It draws upon sources that uplift you and inspire you and tie you into the timeless truths of humanity and will actually help you to craft and live up to your personal mission statement. Spirituality is about having a guiding principle for your life that transcends what you are, that transcends just you. It's about knowing that as a people, we are bigger. The whole is bigger than just one. It doesn't necessarily have to be about knowing that you go somewhere after this. It doesn't necessarily have to be about what God you believe in or what higher power you believe in, but it's about knowing that there are inescapable spiritual truths at the center of your own spirit, at the center of the energy that surrounds, encompasses, and connects all of us. And it's about tapping into that and connecting it. It's about being good to it, and when you see yourself in other people, and knowing that other people can see themselves in you. It's about presenting a good, positive mirror for other people. That's what spirituality is. And remember that these areas have to be balanced. You notice I said that each area was just important as all the other ones. They have to be balanced, and they will leave you to living life on an upward spiral. That has been the 7 habits of highly effective people. Habit 1, be proactive. Habit 2, start with the end in mind. Habit 3, put first things first. Habit 4, think win-win. Habit 5, seek to be understood. Seek first to be understood. No, seek first to understand, then be understood. Habit 6, synergize. Habit 7, sharpen that saw. All right. Thank you so much for watching. If you stuck through this video, thank you so much, man. If you ever get the opportunity, check out this book. Check out this book. There's so much in there that I couldn't give you in just this. Just giving you the core was a lot. If you ever have the time, check it out on your own. All right. Thank you for watching the free hour. Make sure to like, make sure to subscribe, make sure to come back and check me out. Deuces.